memory
How do you know?
My husband used to work for Microsoft.
Okay,
I was saying yes.
it's 2 minutes past 10 now, so we'll make a start. Good morning and welcome to this multi-location meeting of the Visible Services and Street Scene Scrutiny Committee on the 17th of October 2025, 10 a.m. I am Councillor Robert Wood and I will be chairing this meeting. Please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually viewing this meeting, could you raise your electronic hand? And for members in the presentation room, just raise your hand. I wish to remind members signing in remotely of their legal obligation to have their cameras switched on during the meeting, please, to be seen and heard whilst participating in council business. For the benefit of members at home, Tom will read out which members and officers are present in the room today.
Thank you, Chair. So we have Councillor Rob Woods, who's the Chair today. We also have Councillors Caroline Lewis and Councillor Harman. And then in terms of officers, we've got James Davis, Joyce Smith, Helen Griffiths, Anna Harvard, and myself, Tom Rees, Democratic Services.
Thank you, Tom. Now I will move on to declaration on agenda items 2. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Saiframa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Agenda item number 5A. It's the Q1 performance monitoring report. As you may know, I work in my family's hospitality business, and there are reports there discusses about the food hygiene inspection check. So it will be a personal interest.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Right. Item 3 is to consider items from the Cabinet Forward Work Programme. We've had the pre-brief on this, so I'll take the questions in the order of the pre-brief. And as usual, anybody wants to come in at the end, just raise your hand or electronic hand, and then we'll take other questions. So let's quickly speed on to this item. I'll start with the 20 mile an hour review update. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to this report?
Yes, please. Thanks, Chair. So just give you a brief summary of the report. Obviously, everybody's aware that back in September 2023, Welsh Government implemented a 20 mile per hour default speed limit across Wales. There was 92% of the areas in the Neath Talbot were impacted. There was 36 exceptions identified at the time, which then officers identified for remaining of 30. In April 2024, there was a listening programme put in place by the Cabinet Secretary, and in July 2024, new Welsh Government guidance was published for setting speed limits. I believe it was in November 24, officers came before this committee and before Cabinet and asked for permission to actually undertake risk assessments for each of the locations that members and the public have identified previously as potentially leading to a return to 30. So what this report is today is to give you an update on that exercise. In summary, none of the roads that were put forward based on the current guidance we can recommend to put back to 30 at this time. However, and I think this is the most important part of the report, there is new guidance that's coming forward, and it's got setting local speed limits in Wales guidance. Mark MacDonald are working on behalf of the Welsh Government on that guidance, and I know Joy and Helen and the team are working closely with them on developing that guidance, and we're hoping that guidance will be published in the new year. Once that guidance is published, we will then do a similar process where we can review those roads again that have been put forward by members and the public against the new guidance. And I think Joy has explained to me that I think what the new guidance is trying to do is give us more autonomy as local authorities, and just to make sure we've got that more fluidity across the network. And I think the perfect example of that, and like I can see Councillor Scott Jones and Councillor Jeff Jones on here today, is the Ann Valley. There's a lot of speed changes as you go along that road at present, but based on the current guidance, the speed limits are what they should be.
Thanks for that, officer. Right, I'll take the questions in order of the pre-brief. So for the officers, if whoever officer wants to come in on the specific question, that's not a problem, right? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Rahman.
Thank you, Chair. My question is around data. Do we collect any local quantitative data around the impact of such change from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. I know it's been a controversial initiative across Wales, but I think as a local member, it would really beneficial for us if we did have some data available to us when we do meet constituents who are, whether happy or not, in terms of the changes. We can justify our position, because at the moment it is quite difficult to argue or start a debate around the benefit of that initiative. So do we collect any local data, or whether the Welsh government would provide any local data in the near future?
Thank you. Yes, we've only just had last year's data. So that's January 24 to December 2024. And across the whole borough, we have seen a 25% reduction in collision data. Now, obviously, I can't hand on heart say that's because of the speed change, but that's a big change. We've seen changes in the past, 5-6%. The 25% is markedly higher than we would normally expect. So that's in collision data. So Welsh Government is certainly saying it's down to the 20s, because they've done that. This is on the Stats 19, so this is police data. This isn't our own data, this is police data. We do also collect, as you know, in particular areas, as and when. Many of members have asked me in the past, can you give me speed data? Can you give me collision data? We do have that. The problem with that data is, whilst we do get it, it can be a year out of date, because that's how long it gets for the Stats 19 data to go through the system. But yeah, 25% reduction.
Happy with that, Councillor?
That's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Tim Bowen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question had been answered by James. No roads will be going back to 30 at the present time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Caroline Lewis.
My question's been answered as well by James. It was regarding, thank you, James. It was regarding the criteria and guidance. Within my ward, he would say the majority can't be, changed back to 30. And we have an excessive amount of, well, I wouldn't say excessive, well, it is excessive. We have the 20 and we have the speed bumps as well, which I brought up in the members. Oh, sorry, that was discussed previously, but that can't be changed unless you're having work undertaken, a large amount of work undertaken in your ward as well because of the costs. So I suppose would Welsh Government fund costs to remove the speed bumps if it's necessary in areas?
I think for us, at the moment, there isn't funding available, I'll be honest with you. And perhaps we can have a chat offline about the reason why you've got so many speed bumps. You almost had a lot more, that's why you became a pilot at the time, all right? So we can look at what's there, we can look at data in the area, and that's something I haven't done, I'll be honest, because until I had this question, I didn't realise you were still having some concerns there. But I'm quite happy to go away and look at that for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And it's just for the public to be aware of why it can't be switched back to 30 more than anything. And if there's a reason why, they'll totally understand.
Yes. There will be some comments going out now following this report.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, Councillor. Okay, the next question comes from Councillor Susan Grounds.
Oh, hello, good morning. Well, I think the question I had has already been asked regarding the stats on the 20 mile an hour, if the police were actually catching people doing it, because in my area in Rewfawr, the police have been out quite a lot, sort of assessing what's going on there. And obviously there's been a lot of people caught going over that limit. So they are doing 30 in a 20 mile an hour zone. So, I'm not sure what will happen next, but thank you. The stats are going to be brilliant for me to be able to tell residents that there is a 25% definitely decrease in road accidents and injuries. So thank you for that.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Next on the list, I've got Councillor Jeff Jones.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. Yeah, my thoughts is having read the Wales Online reports that come up quite often about but other councils around Wales will give information about what roads will be going back to 30. And, you know, this has been going on now 2 years, and in every report, Neath Talbot Council don't give any announcements. Is there any reason for that? Thank
you. Yes, because I suppose it's because we haven't got any announcements to make. And I think that's because I was having a chat with one of your colleagues a couple of days ago. We talked about what we're doing now. And I think it's more important to remember what we did then. We were one of only 3 authorities in Wales that were legal on day 1. So we had done all of the groundwork. Many of you will recall that I had meetings with you all looking at your areas where we discussed every single piece of those 30s. And I think we did very quickly where we went legal in that September. We, the following day, identified some areas where it was incorrect, and we amended them really quickly. So we haven't waited for the new guidance. We haven't waited all of this length of time. The ones that we've got now, and I do appreciate what you're saying, Councillor, because I know there's some concerns along the Avon Valley Road. But as the report states, we are looking towards the setting local speed limits due out in the new year, as James has said, to get that fluidity on that route for you, because the guidance we've got at the moment is so prescriptive. We're not able to change that. And I know you and I've had many conversations, but that's where we're at in terms of why there's nothing out in the press. There will be a statement going out now, though, following this report.
Happy with that, Councillor?
Okay, thank you, Joy.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Karen Lewis, I've got another question for myself about the bumps. Are you happy it's been answered?
All fine, thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy.
Morning, thanks, Chair. In regards to the list we've already given in now, I'm assuming that you're just going to look at the criteria coming out before, obviously, we ourselves know which roads may refer back to 30 in our own wards.
Yeah, to be honest, Councillor, when it comes in, I'll probably go down exactly the same route as we did with the 20 when that guidance came in. We'll have to get it adopted by the authority, but then I'll be liaising with all of the members in terms of what we've got. So yes, I've got the list. I've got the ones that we haven't been able to do anything with now, but I'll also be looking at other boroughs across the, other areas across the borough. So what we'll be doing is contacting you prior. You won't be finding out via any post or any report. I'll be working closely with you prior to that.
Chair, if I can just come back in a minute, it's just a quick one.
Yeah.
So, Joy, if there is another road that was sort of like a 50-50 and we didn't put it on the list, when we have our meetings, would it be okay then to add that at that time?
Yes, certainly, definitely, I would say.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks.
There's a question as well, Councillor Goldsworthy. You put in about the vans. Do you want to ask that today? Or? No,
I was just sharing my own personal experiences with all of you.
Okay.
Okay. No, okay. Me and the vans have come up. I will actually come in, but obviously, I think it's the vans go in certain areas where it's basically like a bit of a cash cow on certain main roads in some wards. I think it's a tough competition between temporary traffic lights and the Go Safe Wales van in my ward at the moment. But it's also interesting when I've been speaking to Martin Brumby and that on Go Safe, looking at it going in another part of the ward, because we have, after average speed cameras going up, it was well over the 20 miles an hour on the data that returned. But it was interesting to know that the vans can only themselves be parked in certain areas themselves within their own sort of legal permissions or whatever. So that was quite interesting to know as well. And I don't think the public are aware of that, or other fellow councillors, if I'm being honest. So that was just some new information that I was sharing with fellow councillors in briefing.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. It is recognised, to be honest, Councillor, there's an issue. It's not just recognised by us, but it's recognised by GoSafe as well. So they are working at the moment, the partnership, they've been working with the Crime Commissioner and local authorities across the UK. There's some funding stream issues, but they would like to see less reliance on the van for all of the reasons that you've said, and a change then looking towards other camera technology. So, for example, static cameras, but they've also got average speed cameras that can be used on the highway. So moving back really to the type of speed camera technology we were used to before the van. So I think that's the step change going forward. That's what they're looking to do, which will obviously help if you haven't got an area set aside for a camera van within your area.
Okay, thanks for that. Does that also answer your question on the camera?
It certainly does. Thank you.
Right, okay, thanks for that, Karen. Right, I've got no more questions from the pre-brief on this. Are there any other questions on this or anything? No, I can't see anything. Right, okay, this report is for monitoring, therefore we note the report. Item 4 is to consider items from the Scrutiny Forward Work Programme. We have selected item 4A. The report itself is on the agenda packs as supplement 4B, which is item 4A, Winter Preparedness Report. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Really briefly, if I may, Chair. Just to say, obviously, this has been a team effort in terms of preparing this report for you today. So we've got Richard Coleman as the drainage manager, Alex Jones as the electric program manager, and then I got Helen and Joy here in the room with me as well, who included the elements associated with road safety. I hope is what you were after. There's some information in terms of the sort of the day-to-day activities, the sort of preparatory work that's undertaken in the run-up to winter across a couple of the services. And I suppose it's just to pass over to you now and to the committee if there's any questions, if there's any further information you need, and we do our best to answer.
Thanks for that, James. And I think it is quite a timely report in that obviously we're heading into winter. We never know what to expect. So I understand that the report's been put together in the way it's been presented in such a way as to sort of cover off as many things as we can. And I thank everybody who put that report together. Right, okay. Members' questions, we go straight to Councillor Ros Davis first.
Yes, it's on page 6, and it's the priority routes. How long has this been in operation, or is this a new report or policy?
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Davis. So I've been personally involved with the winter gritting operations for a long period of time. We used to have 5 routes, precautionary cycling routes, and that was prior to 2014. In 2014, I think the decision was made to reduce the number of gritting vehicles that we utilised to deliver the service. So we went from 5 precautionary routes down to 4. As part of that exercise, officers, Richard and myself, we undertook a sort of an efficiency exercise, and we tried to limit the number of roads that would come off that precautionary cycling network. So that the routes that you see before you and that are still undertaken today haven't changed or have changed very little, I would say, since 2014.
Okay.
Well, there's a part in there that states that routes with school buses are gritted, but that has not been the case over the years when I've tried to have a road gritted. There's also a service bus there 3 times a week, and I've been refused to have the road gritted. So I don't understand then, because it's in writing here that it should be gritted.
So there's 2 things on that page. So you've got priority routes and then gritted routes. So the priority routes include bus routes. So those routes are the routes that we look to get open as quickly as possible after a period of prolonged poor weather, icy conditions, hoarfrost or snow. Now, that they aren't the precautionary cycling routes. The precautionary cycling routes are the gritting routes. So those are the routes which we will grit on a regular basis prior to the onset of any icy or frost conditions, which obviously cause a hazard on the highway. So those gritted routes can be found within the winter service operational plan, and I think that gets I think circulated each year. So you can see the precautionary salting routes. The priority routes, they are routes that obviously we would like to undertake precautionary salting on, as we do with the precautionary salting routes. Unfortunately, we just don't have the resource to do all those routes, and it would take a significant increase in resource to do that.
Happy with that, Councillor?
Yes, but I mean, if it's in writing here, it's very difficult for councillors to realise that it's not always the case that school bus routes are not gritted.
Do you want me to provide some clarity in a follow-up to this, just around the precautionary salting routes? Because I think that's the key thing here in terms of what actually gets salted, so I can circulate those routes following.
Yes. Yeah. Would you be happy with that, Councillor? They'll circulate the routes.
Yes, that's fair
Following the
enough.
meeting.
I shall keep on trying.
Thanks, Councillor Davis. Right. Next question I got is from Councillor Andrew Dacey.
Thank you, Chair. I just want a staffing update. I know that Richard is covering from Steve Owen, and I'd like to put on record how good Steve was on his job. He met residents for me in Aberafan a couple of times after flooding incidents, which is never easy to do. So I'd like to thank Steve. I know he's not here, but to thank for his service. I wonder what the staffing update is, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Dacey. So just to give you a brief update, obviously following Steve's retirement, what we've now got in place is we've got support in place for Richard and for Aled within Steve's team as their line managers, along with Nathan in public lighting and Steve Curtis within the stores. So myself, Kerry and Simon are on the call today, along with Nick are offering support there. And as you may or may not be aware, we're looking at the structure at the moment. And obviously, as soon as we can, we will look then to replace that post or something similar.
Okay. Thanks for that. And I'd like, on the behalf of the committee, to put our thanks on record to Steve Owen, who's been an excellent officer over the years. Thanks for that, Tom. Okay, Councillor Thomas, I've got a question from you. Councillor Sarah Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I was interested on page 4, it's got the remote monitoring via CCTV cameras. Could we have some more information about that? How many there are, where they are, how they work? Are people monitoring them like on a regular basis, that kind of thing, please?
Yeah, no problem, Councillor Thomas. So I can't tell you the exact number, which I've reviewed before this meeting, but we've got these remote CCTV cameras on all of our critical culverts and drainage assets, because they're the ones that pose the greatest risk in terms of flooding and surcharge. So they are then monitored by the officers, especially during periods of forecast heavy rainfall. So that is done on a continuous basis during those periods, and that's utilised then to direct our resources to the most in need areas of the borough.
Okay, Councillor.
Can I ask, so can you define, I appreciate there are critical ones, but obviously sometimes they're linked to others now. Can you define exactly how things are defined as critical?
So yeah, so there's, I think I'm right in saying there's probably over 2,000 culverts within the county borough. Now some of them are just minor, highway crossing culverts where we've got a high embankment one side and a low embankment on the other side in our valley communities, and they might take a water course, or more often than not, they're there to drain that side of the embankment to the other side of the highway. Those generally aren't seen as critical. There's very little impact if they do get blocked, if they do overflow. It's a bit more different during the winter months, obviously, because then especially if you've got some cold weather periods, then you could get formation of ice or hoarfrost on the highway network. But generally, they wouldn't be suitable to place cameras on either, because they're not big enough. A lot of them don't have trash screens, because as per design guidance, you wouldn't put trash screens on those sorts of culverts. The critical ones are the larger ones that I suppose all members on this call will be aware of, especially the ones within their wards. but they're there in place because obviously if they do become blocked during periods of heavy rainfall, then it's highly likely there's going to be property flooding or business flooding, or even just, you know, you could be cutting off a highway to a community, which would stop all sorts of services reaching that community.
Okay, Councillor.
And yeah, so most of those have got CCTV in them now, have they? Or we're not sure.
Yeah, no, I think I can correct in saying that all the critical and high priority culverts that are identified have got them on, but I would have to just confirm with Richard.
Okay, thanks for that,
Thanks,
James.
Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back to Rosalind's comments about routes and whatever. And I think we have the same problem up in the Avon Valley with one or two of the primary schools. And I just happened to see a video on YouTube where you have these small towed gritters which are fitted to the backs of Land Rovers, whatever, and they are towed along and they can get into smaller, tighter streets. That may be a thought the council could consider for the future. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. So with gritting, there's two different elements to it. So you've got your precautionary soft-in network, which is what the gritting vehicles are used for throughout the winter period. And the way that it works, so the science behind it is that we put rock salt on the road prior to the onset of any ice or hoarfrost to stop its formation, or to minimise the impact as much as possible. Now, those precautionary routes are undertaken obviously prior to the onset of snow, ice, hoarfrost. We don't do that with anything other than our gritting vehicles as per the policy and the plan at the moment. Now, and that's mainly down to resource availability. The second element of it is obviously when we've got a longer, prolonged period of work conditions for during the winter months. So whether it's whiteout conditions, it's snowfall for a period of a couple of days, or we've got some really hard icing because the temperatures are really low when we've had rainfall in the run up to it. And that's when then the neighbour teams become involved, and those sorts of vehicles are utilised. We've got pickups where we have a lot of salt then put on the back of a pickup, and that'll be used to spread on those routes that you're talking about. And they are the sort of the secondary salt-in routes that we would look at then. And the main reason for that secondary sort of salt-in network is to address those issues during those difficult periods throughout the winter, and it's to make sure there's access to services, to schools, and like you just mentioned.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes, okay.
Right, we have thanks. We have actually got grit bins coming back to this committee on the 28th of November. So obviously, if you want to present anything around the grit bins, you've got an opportunity for officers and councillors then to have a discussion on that as well. I've got a question from the chair on this report. I say very rare, I put a question in, but as I say, you know, it's generally around if it is a severely bad winter, are you working with the emergency planning team around if staff can't get to work, and is there any scope of utilisation with other staff who may be able to get to work, or any prior training done to utilise other staff? So for example, if we've got staff living in the Swansea area can't get into work, will that mean that certain vehicles can't get out and equipment can't get out? And is there any sort of planning, future planning put in place so we could utilise perhaps other drivers who don't normally drive the grit trucks, but to bring them into work in an emergency?
Yeah, okay. Probably trying to take that two parts. So with emergency planning colleagues, with them and the team, obviously business continuity plan is in place, and that's for all services. So that's for all services to identify those measures they need to put in place to keep their own services running, rather than for example, the housing drainage and where the winter gritting service sits, put that in place for the whole council. So yeah, business continuity plans are in place for that. I'm sure Emma will be able to confirm information and detail on what I gave to on that. But in terms of the service itself, to limit the impact associated with it, what we do is obviously we make sure that when we've got those forecast conditions, that we've got strategically placed vehicles across the borough, 4x4s, mainly to be able to get the operational staff in that need to be in, because let's be honest, they become the most important people in the council during those times. Because without them doing that work, which is obviously exceptionally difficult during those periods of prolonged hazardous conditions, what they do is so vitally important to keep all of our services running. So there's two parts to it: business continuity planning, which is on each service area, and then there's the sort of resilience and business continuity element associated with the service itself.
Well, thanks for that, officer. Thanks for that answer. Right, I've got Councillor Charlotte Baldwin.
Just to say, it's also it's a good question, that is, Rob. It's also that, isn't it our own fleet as well that actually help with social services when obviously getting the issues around care, and you do work very closely throughout the winter months and that with social services if need to, which you have done in the past. Is that our own
certainly,
fleet?
Councillor. Yeah, we have those conversations with internal conversations with services to assist where required. We do something very similar with the NHS, where we get each year we get sort of locations of patients who require dialysis, and how they want to know how far they're away from the Good Day network. Are there stop bins close to where they live in, just so that they can undertake their own risk assessment to see if they are able to get out during those periods of prolonged icy weather. So yeah, we do it internally and we do it with our partner organisations as well.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor, and thanks for that, James. Okay, this report is for monitoring, therefore we note the report. Item 5 is performance monitoring. We have selected item 5A, performance monitoring items. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Nothing from me, Councillor. I think it's just any questions.
Okay, go straight into questions then. And the first one I've got is Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy.
It's just coming up quite a bit with me at the moment, but it's also coming in through a lot of social services concerns being raised as well. It's about drop curbs across the borough, and I don't know if there's a lot more people now that are using little scooters. They use the strollers a lot more. A lot more people got the independence now of obviously using this, because it used to be a taboo thing. Oh, I'm not having one. It was, that sort of mindset of people before a lot of the time. It's becoming quite a fashion thing at the moment, I think. But there's a lot of old existing ones that are not suitable for a lot of them. As they're going over, it could topple, or they're damaged curbs where people have, parked on them and gone up on them. But also there's a few now that are actually missing, whereas we've only put them in the main sort of areas before, maybe outside schools and shops and that. But I think this could be a bit more of a borough issue. So I don't know if there's anything we could do to go to Welsh Government to ask for money, or do a scope on looking at drop curbs across the borough.
Yeah.
I know I'm not involved myself, but I do know that there is a review going on at the moment in terms of our drop curb provision across the borough, like you've asked, Councillor. From my perspective, our learner travel officer, as you know, works across the borough looking at the routes to school. Where those are identified, we do have a small pot of funding where we're able to put them in. I must emphasise small. But we are looking at it. We are picking them up. I think you're right. I think more people are using the scooters now than before. So I would urge, if there are areas across your patch, to let us know. But we are looking at putting a programme together, and then we'll be looking for funding, obviously.
Okay, thanks, that, Councillor. Yeah. Okay, next one is Councillor Andrew Dace.
Right, thank you, Chair. When we report miscollections of either recycling or rubbish to officers, does that get reflected in the figures when reporting? I know, because a lot of people who have regularly missed contact councillors and then we do the work for them more or less by contacting the officers. Do they get logged as well?
Thanks, Councillor Dacey. Yeah, any sort of miscorrections for waste that get logged, whether it's through the public or through yourselves as members, will all get logged, yes.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Dacey. Councillor Tim Bowen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll go straight to page 54 of the pack, and it's all the percentages of enforcement, prosecutions, and so forth for Q1. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are really bad. One of them, I know I asked in the last meeting about the report on Aberafan Beach, how many people have been prosecuted or fined for taking their dogs onto the beach during the periods they shouldn't, and it come back as 0, which is quite alarming compared, with the amount of dogs that people do take on there with the bylaw that we've got in place, and we're not enforcing it. To see a fixed penalty notice for number of successful dog fouling prosecutions, 1. I'd like to find out, where are all our enforcement officers actually working in the area? If it's, if we're only catching 1 person in the whole of the Neath and Talbot. That's the first one. And the second one then is on the fixed notices of litter again. 5 in Q1. Same again, where are our enforcement officers working?
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jones. So, to give you a bit of brief background on the team. So, the team, obviously, which Academy sort of the guy manages, there's Carl, and then there's 5 enforcement officers within that team. So, they obviously cover the whole county borough, and they pick up functions associated with fly tipping, with litter, with dog fouling. So there's an array of different functions that they look after. Now, dog fouling in particular is by far the hardest one to enforce. The officers have to be there to see, obviously, someone leave the dog's body, and quite often not, a lot of dog fouling instances that would happen and occur across the county borough would happen when there's nobody else present, because obviously people are aware that there's something that you aren't allowed to do. And aware that you can be prosecuted for it. That's why the numbers have always been low associated with fixed penalty notices for dog fouling, and that's the same across Wales. It's just a really difficult one to police. There's been a sort of a new poster that was put out, and I know Carl has come to all members to see if there was an uptake there in terms of taking those posters to be able to put them in the community to try and put people off and make sure that people do pick up after their dogs. I think there was sort of a mixed take up on that, if I'm being honest, where some members were happy to take them and to do that work, and others that maybe they haven't got as much of a problem within those wards. So that's just to give you a flavour of the difficulty that the team face. Now, what the team also do is they do whole team exercises, and these are usually the request of members. I know they've done it on the beachfront on a number of occasions and in other areas as well. And what they tend to do is they'll come in early morning or late evening, whenever the member thinks the problem is arising, and they will come in and they will do that for a day or two to see if they can try and put and make it. The main thing is raising awareness. Now, if 1 or 2 people actually get issued with a fixed penalty notice, or if they don't pay the fixed penalty notice and then they won't get prosecuted after, obviously that does send a strong message with the comms we can put out after that as well. But I would say, obviously, a lot of time is taken up on the sort of the case loads associated with fly tipping of the team, and obviously it's a significant break in our landscape, and that's something that we always want to take people to task on. There is also other difficulties associated with dog fouling in terms of you've got the public interest test as well. We can be on site, so an enforcement officer can be on site, can see a dog foul with an owner, and they can go on to the owner, and the owner can say, "Oh, I didn't realise," and walk back and pick up that dog foul. And it's very difficult then to go through that based on the public interest test to take that much further. Now we do, and we take it as far as we can, and there have been a lot of successful fixed penalty notices issued that have been paid, and there have been cases in the past where it's gone to prosecution, but it is the more difficult one than what it is with things which are a bit more straightforward with the evidence like fly tipping.
Thank you on that,
Thanks for
James.
that.
Can I just come back in a minute quickly, Chair?
Yeah,
Just a
certainly.
quick one, James. If residents have video footage, are we able to prosecute people on that video footage?
I think the best person to take that up with council would be with Carl himself, because he would be able to give you the guidance in terms of what we can utilise there. But I don't see a reason why we couldn't.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor. I'll come in because I did make a comment in the pre-brief on it. And I think the work that's been done around the fly tipping team and the visuals we've put out and the notices we've been writing have been excellent, you know. I can't fault that at all. And I think it's had a deterrent for people knowing that our council is very efficient when it comes to doing that. But perhaps with the dog fouling, it does need to be sort of desegregated from that, because it's a big issue for us as councillors. We all have complaints about it. And I know what you're saying in terms of prosecutions, but perhaps we need to have a specific dog warden going up and down the beach or hitting areas that are of specific concern, because it's the deterrent factor as well. And other people who see the dog, responsible dog owners, will see the dog warden and will think, well, this is great that we've actually got a dog warden out patrolling. And I know, as I say, when you've got a sort of a mixed area of responsibilities, sometimes one area will pull all the effort away. And I think, you know, this is of concern. And I think, you know, as a committee, we probably feel that, you know, it needs to be sort of a little bit more work needs to be done around that. Councillor Lewis, please.
I think my question is sort of loosely linked to it. We had fly tipping within our area, quite a significant amount. And Carl and his team are brilliant, but the problem we have is they put cameras up, but you have to put signage with the cameras, not you. Is that something you have to do? Because as soon as the signage went up and the camera went up, obviously they just moved to a different location than the road. It's on the old roads within the village. That was just, I know that within our ward as well, I think there was a prosecution. It was done through CCTV on somebody's house with dog fouling. So it's a very difficult one, isn't it? You put a camera up, but then it just moves to an alternative. My question is basically, do you have to put the signage up?
It would depend on the location.
Right.
It would depend on the surroundings.
Right.
There's a process that we have to go through,
Okay.
a legal process. So we do both. We do covert and overt.
Right. Okay.
CCTV surveillance. That will depend on the location.
Right. Okay. I understand. Yeah. Imagine. Right. Okay. I believe that.
Okay. Thanks for that.
One other thing, the posters were brilliant within the ward, but I did question why they couldn't use. I know other councils use the posters where you've got a child that's gone blind or the effect of taking in dog fouling on a playing field. Personally, I think those posters have far more effect because you can relate it to maybe your child then going blind through playing in dog mess, or you know, or a family member playing rugby and have been affected by it. And I think it's something we should take on as a council rather than the ones that we have. I would have personally, I find those far more effective because it plays on the emotions of, you know, the community rather than the dog.
Thanks for that. So more hard hitting.
I think
signage and posters.
I think that was the idea behind these new signs. Is because the previous ones, which are just the diagrammatic image, you know, don't do a lot. These new signs are ones that are used nationally as well, and used by other authorities, and there's been some good results. But that's something you could potentially pick up with Carl.
I did bring it up and he said he wasn't allowed to use them, but I know Carmarthen Council, they use them, or there's a community council near Carmarthen swimming pool. I know that because I walk the area sometimes. They've got them on their gates, and I sent him a photo of it, and it's really, but if other councils do use them, I don't understand why we can't.
No, I'd be very surprised if what Carl's told you is we aren't able to utilise them.
They were too offensive.
Yeah, well, I'd have to check.
Okay.
I'd have to check. I wouldn't be able to give you an.
All right, okay, it's no problem. It's just something I feel. I feel it would work better. It certainly had an effect on me seeing the certain pictures.
Okay, thanks for that, councillor. Next speaker I got is councillor Jeff Jones.
Thanks again, Chair. As we talked about performance, and Kerry Morris is here, can I take the opportunity to congratulate the planning team for their performance by surpassing the targets of 95%, for full applications checked within 15 working days, and for their plan applications approved first time. They achieved the maximum performance of 100%. I think that's something worth congratulating. If you could take that back to Team Kerry, be much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks,
Yes,
Chair.
will do. Thanks, Councillor Jones. I'll certainly take that back.
Okay, thanks, councillor. And as I say, that is well noted. Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy.
Just want to come back on a bit of dog fouling, because we all like a bit of dog fouling now and again to talk about, because it's a current thing sometimes in wards, isn't it? But some of the times I live on literally on the sister and cycle track I do, and the number of times I've gone out to people that are on their phones, and it's not that the fact of they're doing it intentionally, it's the fact of they're not looking where the dog is, and you know that is their responsibility, I know, but everyone is so much engrossed on their telephones at the moment. But one sad case it was for me, and I didn't know how to look upon it, to be honest. I've got a number of residents, like everyone else, that their dog is their life. It's their only companion, and their mobility issues, they can't bend and that kind of stuff, and they've walked out. And it's the only one I know of in my ward in recent years that actually got fined, is a gentleman like that, and he couldn't. So I did do I made an arrangement with him that when he walks, he phones me, and then I go out and pick it up for him. But again, I think, there are these factors as well that, causes the issue. But with another hat on, is that what is that dog to that individual as well? So I know I'm not condemning, obviously, dog fouling, but sometimes there are different reasons for different people to. What did someone else just say now? Jeff, what did you do? Oh yeah. The other one I want to give thanks to, because they've done some outstanding work in the last 18 months, 2 years, is fly tipping. The results that they've got and the way they're going forward is absolutely outstanding. So again, I do think that team needs a bit of recognition for the work they've done. It's been fantastic, and I love sharing all that on the fly tipping stuff. So give them a big thanks from us as well. That's all for me today.
Thanks, councillor. And again, as I say, they do a fantastic job there over on that department. So take Carl, our thanks back to him and that as well. Okie doke. This report is for monitoring, therefore we note the report.
Sorry, Chair. I did email you to ask that I could ask a question on this.
All right, okay. If you want to ask a further question, yes.
I do, please. There we are. So it was on page 42 about the food hygiene. So it says there's a risk of high risk businesses. So my first question was, how do you define high risk businesses? What makes them high risk?
Yeah, I can come into that, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah,
it's the food. Every food business is categorised in terms of risk. Typically, the more higher risk premises tend to be takeaways, whereas the lower risk go all the way down to sort of vending machines supplied in various premises, and there's of course a range of businesses in between. Based on the Food Standards Agency framework agreement, there are certain targets that we've got to aim. So we've every high risk business needs to be sort of looked at and inspected within sort of a 6-month period, whereas the lower risk businesses, then they can be extended out to a period over a number of years. So clearly there's a targets that we have to hit in terms of the high risk businesses, and that's where the staff sort of capacity is prioritized. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Councillor Thompson.
It does. So what is our actual target? I know it said we're within 5%, but I was just, what is the target?
Which
So this is page 42, the first entry, and it says we're slightly below target, and then a bit further down it says we're within 5%. So we had 20.3%. I'm assuming we should have had 25%, but I just want to make sure.
We're just short of the target at the moment. For the year, the target is 75%. So that's what we aim to achieve over the annual reporting period. So obviously that's split then quarterly. So what we tend to try and aim to do is achieve that 25% in the first quarter, which we're slightly below at this stage.
Okay, but we anticipate no problems hitting that target over the course of the year.
Yeah, no, as I say, the way the inspection program is set up, if there is any sort of fall back behind the targets, then obviously the resources are then prioritised to sort of regain any lost ground as the reporting year continues.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. And Kerry.
Thanks for that, Kerry, and it's good to know that area will be targeted in order to bring it up to target there anyway. Okay then, so we'll now go on to the selection of items for future scrutiny. Members, we will now look at the Cabinet and Scrutiny Forward Work programmes and discuss any items we may wish to add to the Forward Work programme. I'll hand over to Tom now to explain any changes to the Forward Work programme.
Thank you, Chair. So as members would have noted, earlier in the week, I circulated some answers to questions that came up during the Forward Work programme session last time. So officers kindly came back to us with those responses, so you've had those. In terms of changes, we haven't really got a lot of change to the Forward Work programme at the moment, but I thought it was worth just referencing what the Chair said earlier about the grip bins review, because obviously we were trying to get that for this one because it sort of was part of that theme. But that's coming to our next meeting, and that's quite timely, I think, based on the discussions today. Members did indicate previously to me that there's a couple of things they'd like to add to reports that we know are coming on the Forward Work programme, so just some additional information. So I'll need to feed this back to officers. I haven't had an opportunity yet, but just to sort of bring those up now while I can. So I think in terms of the drop curves issue, in terms of goals, really sort of raised that in the meeting itself. So we don't need to do that now for officers, but I know in terms of the Japanese knotweed report, Councillor Bowen had indicated that it might be useful to have figures of how many locations we know of where Japanese knotweed exists during the 24-25 period. Something outside of discussions I've had with members is that you'll note on the Forward Work programme in your reports that we were expecting at some point the EV on street charging report to come back. And I've had some discussions with officers about that being worked on at the moment, so that is coming shortly, but we just don't have a go for it. Not sure if there were any other things raised, Chair, that you're aware of.
No, as I say, I think a lot of it is going to be covered by the highways.
That's it, yes.
That paper will cover a lot of what the questions were surrounding. Okay, Tom. Going on then to item 7, urgent items. I have none. No further items. That ends the business for today. Thank you all for attending. I wish all those in the room safe journey home, and online enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Enjoy all. Good weekend.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Diolch yn fawr. Hwyl.